Hi, this is Tiffany with Buckwalter Greenhouse, and we're going to be making a fairy garden today, or a miniature garden. First off, if you take your potting soil and put it in a bin, something that can get wet, it's always good to toss it around with some water first, because it makes the first time you water it absorb easier. The water absorbs easier. Kind of like moistening a wet sponge. You know, if you try to pour water, try to get a really dry sponge wet, it just runs right off. Potting soil can be the same way. We're using this really cute little tin here today. If you want it to have drainage, just take a little nail and a hammer and punch a couple holes in the bottom. I already punched a couple holes in mine. Okay, so we got it filled up to the top here. I got 3 plants picked out. This is a confetti fern. It's not really like a fern, but that's what it's called. It's a type of pilea that's variegated leaves. This is going to be our tree. Turn your pot upside down and squeeze the bottom. This is the front, so I'm going to put this towards the back for my height. And I think I'm going to put this little purple Persian shield on the other side, because I'm planning to put my house right in the middle. And then we have some Scotch moss, which is going to be like our grass. This you can trim if you want, just like you do actual grass, or you can just kind of let it creep along and do its thing. When I have my house, I'm planning to put like a little pathway curving off to one side, so I think I'll put my grass over on this one, which is actually Scotch moss. And if you plant Scotch moss along the edge of your pot, it will actually creep over the side, which kind of adds another cool element to it. Okay, got that part done. Now the fun part, we gotta decorate. So I have a cute little house here. I'm gonna set that on the back. If you want, you can kind of pack down and add some extra soil where you place your house to give it a sturdier foundation, so to speak, to place it on top of. I have that like that. I have some red sand, just to add pop of color. And take that from the doorway. I'm gonna curve it around. I think I'm going to use these little flat rocks for stepping stones coming out of the house. You can be creative and use them however you want. Some people like to use them like landscape edging. Or put them in a circle and make a campfire or a little pool. There's lots of different ways to be creative with it. There we go there. This is a dried moss I'm going to use to finish covering some of the soil. You could leave it open if you want. You don't have to cover it. And this just tears apart into whatever size you want. Again, this is dried, so, and it's painted green, so you don't have to water it, so to speak. It just is there. If it's not staying in place, you can take a bobby pin or fold a piece of florist wire in half, like in a U shape, and push those pins down on top of the moss to secure it. If you get to an edge, if you want, you can tuck in the moss, kind of like you're tucking your shirt into your pants, if you want a little cleaner look. And then lastly, I'm gonna add some cute little gnome, because this is where he lives. And he's got a little buddy with him. It's an owl. I think he'll go over here. He can sit on top of the moss. And there you have it. Your miniature garden's done. Now, as far as care, when you water, you want to water real slow. Let's see if I can show you here. And water at the base of the plants. Give it a little bit at a time and then let it soak in. That way I don't mess up any of my rocks or sand. And how often is just gonna kind of depend as your plants get adjusted. A good way to check is to put your finger, touch an inch or two down into the soil, and if it feels like you touched a wet sponge, then you're good. You don't need to water. You could also check the weight of it, see what it feels like when you water it versus waiting a couple of days, and if it feels lighter than normal, then it's probably time to water. So there you go. Okay, now we're going to be making a fairy garden, a miniature garden with a fairy. So first thing I'm doing is moistening my soil. Just tossing around so it's damp all the way through. It makes it a lot easier to work with. And it's easier to water it the first time. The water won't just run off, it'll absorb it. And for this one, I'm using a low bowl. Already has holes in the bottom. So if you're placing it someplace where you don't want it to leak or get wet, you're gonna need a saucer under it. Fill it all the way to the top. A little higher than normal is okay. And my first element I'm gonna use is my tree-like plant. This is a type of Aralia, which can be a house plant, or you can have it outside in the shade. And I'm putting it towards the back. I'm drawing my soil up around it because I am planning to put my house back here at the back as well. And I think I'm gonna move my other plant off to the side. This is a little variegated spider plant, which eventually he'll get too big for this, but I can take him out and put something else in. And then these are called brass buttons. They look like a real tiny little fern, but they stay low and the leaves stay small, so it's perfect for miniature gardens. And it creeps along. This is a lot bigger pot, so I need to take some of my potting soil out so I can get it down far enough. And I'm actually going to remove the bottom of the roots on this one, which is fine. It won't hurt it a bit. Tuck them in there. If you want, you could also tear that apart and split it into 2 pieces. Okay, now the decorating part. Where I want my house to go, I want the soil to be firm so my house doesn't sink. So I'm putting some extra and I'm pushing down on it. Everywhere else I leave alone because I don't want to compact the potting soil where my plants grow. There we go there. And then I'm also going to pack down where I want my path leading up to my house because I don't want to get the dirt mixed in with my rocks. So I have some blue colored rocks here. If you want, you can have it kind of flare out at the base. Kind of give that illusion of it going from small to big. And then I have some blue colored moss I'm going to use around the side. And I have my lovely little fairy that's going to sit, I think she's just going to sit right here in the middle of that. And she's got a little turtle friend that's going to come hang out with her. Maybe over here. And you can move them all around however you want. They don't have to stay in one place. And then for watering, you just want to go real slow wherever the plants are, because you don't want it to wash away your rocks or make a mess. And there, I'm gonna pick her up. I put water on it, then I let it absorb in. There we go, your miniature garden.